My best friend's fiancé flirted me and others. We stayed silent until he crossed the line. I told her everything. She chose him. Her entire friend group turned on me, so I left them for good. I, female 28, have been putting off writing this for some time, as in almost 2 years. But I need to get some outsiders' opinions. I've been listening to the pod for the past few months, newbie listener, and I love your guys' input. You're all so open-minded and try to think about both sides of the story when you give your opinions. Because we all know there's 3 sides to every story: mine, the other party's, and the truth. I think hearing you guys talk about my story may help heal me in some way. So a little history. I had a friend group that had been close since the 9th grade of high school. I turned 29 this month, so that tells you how long we had all been friends, 15 plus years. This friend group consisted of myself, friend 1, who we'll call Blair, friend 2, who we'll call Sarah, and friend 3, who will be Jenna. This story is mainly about me and Blair, friend 1. But our friend group was inseparable. We spent almost every weekend together. We were there for each other through so much, and spent countless amounts of hours laughing together and making memories that will last a lifetime. For that, I am so very grateful. I had a group of friends who felt more like sisters that were there for me, no matter what. But that all came to an end, almost 2 years ago. Blair and I talked every single day. We would text each other throughout the day and would call each other every other week because we lived in different cities, and it was hard to physically hang out. But we knew everything about each other and what was going on in each other's lives. I couldn't imagine her not being my best friend. For Blair's birthday one year, her then boyfriend, now husband, who we'll call Chuck, threw a surprise party for her. I took off work and drove a few hours to attend the party. We all went out and had a great night, and I had a few too many drinks. When we got back to the house, I got out of the Uber and began throwing up in a bush outside the house. Classy. Chuck came over and offered me some help and a bottle of water. He helped me into the house, and I made my way downstairs to a bathroom. At the time, I was trying not to puke and hadn't even realized he followed me into the bathroom. I started throwing up in the toilet, as one does after taking 1 too many green tea shots, and he held my hair, which is fine. I'd known him for a few years at that point, and we were pretty close, so I didn't think anything of it. I then resorted to sitting on the bathroom floor, basically hugging the toilet. Chuck also made his way to the floor behind me and sat down. This is where it starts to get a little ick. He proceeded to wrap his legs around my body as I was throwing up, unable to tell him to go away, and started rubbing my back. A few other friends started yelling for me and were coming down the stairs to check on me. And Chuck jumped up and ran to the other side of the bathroom, attempting to get as far away from me as he could before they made it to the door. Kind of sus and weird, right? So no, he didn't try to kiss me. No, he didn't grope me. Yet, stay tuned. But he did make me feel uncomfortable, and my intuition was telling me something was off. The next day, I stopped at my parents' on my way home and talked to my mom about what happened. She said maybe I was just drunk and it wasn't a big deal, and to not say anything. This happened in June. I decided to brush it under the rug and didn't mention it to her or anyone else in our friend group. Fast forward to February. Me, my mom, and Jenna, friend 3, decided to go out one night for dinner and some drinks. She stayed at my parents' with me, and the next morning we were up having coffee and talking. Jenna was on her phone and goes, "OMG, do you think this is weird?" She shows me her phone. Chuck had liked all of her past Instagram pictures the night before at like 3 a.m. I mean, months of pictures from posts over the past few years. I was just like, were you guys messaging and joking around last night or something? And she said no. And then she said, "This isn't the first time he's done something weird like this." Me and my mom just looked at each other like, crap. She saw the look and freaked out and asked what had happened. I told her my story, and she said a similar thing had happened to her, but her story was actually worse. So at a Christmas party they had, I was not there, she took an edible and passed out on the couch in their basement. She woke up to an empty basement except for her, and guess who? Yup, Chuck. She was lying on the couch and said he was trying to get her to roll over and look at him. She said to avoid him, she continued facing the inside of the couch, pretending to be asleep. He then got on the couch and straddled her, pulling her face over to try to kiss her. Before he could, Blair started yelling for him upstairs and he took off running. Jenna said she didn't say anything to anyone about it because she was so freaked out. At this point, we're 3 to 4 months away from their destination wedding we've all bought tickets to and booked Airbnbs for. But I told Jenna, "Listen, you've got to tell her." I said, "I'll tell her what happened to me too. We can't just let her marry him knowing this kind of information." Jenna said no, she didn't want to get involved and that she was afraid of Blair and how she would react. My mom agreed it was a bad idea as well. I called Sarah, our other friend, and she was like, dude, why did you have to tell me this? And wouldn't give any opinion on what to do. So I talked to my therapist about it, and she also told me to not say a word. With the advice from a professional, I decided to keep my mouth shut and not say anything. A few months went by. I avoided going to friend events because I felt so guilty. This made Blair really pissy because I kept flaking, which led to her doing mean, passive-aggressive things to me at our friend's bridal shower. I won't get into that. April came around and we were in a mutual friend's wedding together. Bridal shower friend. That is when all hell broke loose. After the wedding, we went to a bar. I was standing there talking to a group of friends when I felt someone grab. And not just a small grab. I mean, it hurt. I turn around and who is it? Chuck. When I said, dude, what the heck? He literally grinned at me and sarcastically said, oops, I thought you were Blair, and then walked away without apologizing. Side note, to put into perspective, the grab was so hard I had visible fingerprint bruises on my butt cheek the next day. I was extremely upset and honestly distraught about what to do, so I told Sarah. She confronted Blair about it, and she said, oh, Chuck just came up to me and told me about what happened. It was a total accident, and literally laughed it off. So I thought, whatever, I'm just going to stay away from them and do my own thing. Later on that night, Chuck and Blair got into a gigantic fight about something, not him grabbing. They were screaming in each other's faces and got thrown out of the bar. Blair took off running down the street and no one could find her. Chuck got in his car, drunk, and drove back to their house at 1 a.m. Mind you, they live around 2 hours away from where we were at the time. Once we found Blair, I offered to stay in her hotel room with her because she was obviously very upset. Which, looking back now, I shouldn't have done because I was drunk and pissed off and should have known the truth was going to come out. And it did. All of it. When I had previously talked to my therapist about whether or not I should tell Blair about everything, she said it would be pointless and that she would not take my side or hear me out. It would make her turn against me. And that's exactly what happened. We tried reconciling the next day and I told her that I loved her and would support her no matter what her decision was. She ended up sending a very lengthy message a few days later about how she talked to Jenna, friend 3, about everything. I then found out that Jenna went back on what she had told me. When Blair confronted her, she denied all of it and said I was making a big deal out of nothing. About a month later, her bachelorette party came around. I spent money and lots of time decorating for it, took time off work and everything. It resulted in me getting mocked by her aunt. She came up behind me, grabbed my butt, and when I turned around, she said, "What, you don't like having your butt grabbed?" Her work friends ganging up on me, and I ended up overhearing her aunt, and her work friends talking about how I'm a terrible, jealous, toxic person who she needs to take out of her life. Other unpleasant things were said as well. This all happened while my other friends were in the room listening and didn't say a word to defend me. Needless to say, I had never in my life felt more alone and betrayed. I don't think I'll forget how horrible that felt. I packed my stuff and left. The next day she texted me, "Thanks for the balloons." A week before the wedding, she sent me a text that said, "Considering everything that's happened, I would not be upset if you didn't come to the wedding." She knew I had already spent hundreds of dollars on my flight that I wouldn't get back. I went on the trip anyways. I tried making the best of it, but it freaking sucked. Our friend group all stayed in the same Airbnb, so everyone was getting ready to go to the wedding, and I just sat at the condo alone reading a book. We went out one night and ran into Chuck and his friends. I was eating a hoagie at table, minding my own business with one of our friends, and he came up to us and started belligerently screaming in my face, causing a public scene, saying, "Get the freak out of here. No one wants you here. You ruined our entire wedding. Screw you. I'll pay you to leave this island." Needless to say, it was awful. There were 3 of us girls out that night, and he screamed at them too. For being friends with me, making them cry. People were staring at us. It was a whole butt scene. I calmly got up, looked at him completely emotionless, and said, "Chuck, screw you," and walked away to my Uber. I asked my other friends if they wanted to leave with me, but they were trying to reason with and talk to him. It was so bad one of his friends pulled him aside and told him to stop, that he was acting out of control. The friends who were out that night had to attend the wedding the next day, and said Chuck acted like nothing happened and didn't apologize to them. Karma apparently has a sense of humor because the weekend of their wedding, there was a huge tropical storm and it ruined their original venue. I wasn't happy about that by any means because I'm not evil, but the funny part is that the storm had the same name as the bride's real name. What are the odds of that? Me and Blair haven't talked since the week before her wedding, which was almost 2 years ago. She now has a baby with Chuck. Sarah and I are still friends, but I no longer talk to Jenna. Sarah is still friends with both of them. Jenna and Blair are besties now and post about each other all the time. I have a few other friends I met because of Blair, and they have also cut ties with her after everything that happened. There's honestly so much more to the story. Things that had happened in the past between me and Blair, and about who Blair is as a person that might make a difference on someone's opinion of this situation, but I don't have time to get into all of that. After reading this very long story, if you're still with me, LOL, do you think I'm the a-hole? Edit, I just wanted to clear some things up that a few people commented about. Blair didn't laugh about the past essay. She just knew about it, and when Chuck grabbed me, she laughed that off, knowing what I had been through in the past. My therapist gave me the advice of not saying anything prior to him grabbing me. When I told her about that, she told me to cut ties and that I should have called the police. She had also been my therapist for 2+ years and had the history behind me and Blair's relationship. And last, I just wanted to thank all of you for your kind words, support, advice, and insight. I do have a good support system who have all validated my decisions and have told me I made the right choice. But when you overhear someone who you love and trust talk about what a toxic person you are, you end up doubting yourself, no matter how many people tell you that you were correct in what you did. Everyone in the past who has told me I wasn't the a-hole was biased in their opinion because they know and love me. It was really refreshing and healing to have this many people who don't know me validate my feelings. Thanks again for taking the time out of your lives to comment and share your own painful stories and traumas. I wasn't expecting this much of a response. It has made me feel less alone. Giving everyone virtual hugs, I hope you all know how much this had meant to me. And a big thanks to this subreddit for creating a platform where I felt comfortable enough to open up about this awful situation. Story 2. Caught my friend's affair at my party on camera. Should I tell their spouses? Hello Reddit. This is a complicated story, so I will try to explain it the best I can. I, 25, female, play an online video game. There I've met many people. I became friends with many and have actually met some in real life and consider them close friends. This video game is where I met my boyfriend, 28, male. This story begins 2 years ago, in October 2022, when my boyfriend's friends were planning a gathering in our city. At the moment, one of them, 30 male, let's call him Jack, had been talking to an in-game girl, 32 female, let's call her Chris, for a while, and had been experiencing feelings for her. The issue is that Jack has been married for 8 years and has 2 children under 7 years old. Jack is from our city but moved to the USA many years ago. However, Chris is from our city and was planning on meeting her during the game gathering. The host, 32 male of the event, told Jack that he didn't want Chris near his house because he is a firm believer of loyalty. Besides, the host had already met Jack's wife, and he felt it was messed up to be part of the betrayal. In the end, Jack was trying to convince the host to receive her just for the first day of the meeting. In that moment, Jack asked for my advice about the topic and what to do, and I was honest with him. For me, loyalty is very black and white. I told him that if he really liked Chris, he should tell her wife and open their marriage or divorce, but to talk about it. He said divorce was not possible due to his children, and decided he was not going to try anything with Chris since she wasn't worth all what he was going to lose. Back to the day of the meeting, they arrived together to the house of the host. Jack told the boys, in some point of the party, that they had already hooked up before the party. As hard as it was for me, it was not my issue and had to move on. After all, Chris became part of our group of friends. We ended up meeting more people from the game, and she was already part of the group. I learned that she's also married with Tom, 33, male. Even when all of us have talked about inviting their couple, we have never met neither Jack's nor Chris's couple. And that relief the guilt, and to be honest, I couldn't for sure if they were really cheating since no one had seen them done anything. In one of our meetings in January 2023, we gathered at Jack's house in our city. Yes, he flies here just to see Chris. At some point of the night, I saw both of them going to the kitchen, and my beverage was also empty, so after a couple of minutes I went inside and caught them making out. He was holding 2 of her arms above her head against the wall and had another of his hands in her waist, inside his shirt, while they were kissing. I was shocked, just closed my eyes and cursed in my head, and both ran away from the kitchen and never said a word to me. I told my boyfriend what I saw, and he was disappointed also. We had never proofed that they were doing things, so we thought it could be them just being flirty. After asking for advice, to people who doesn't know them, we got to a point where maybe it was just a slide. And I should not get involved. And again, I hadn't met their couples, so the guilt didn't feel personal. Everything changed on April 2023. Chris, another girlfriend from the group, and I had a sleepover at Chris's house, so I ended up meeting him, and that's when guilt really hit me. I felt really awful during the whole night. Tom turned to be a really nice guy and was constantly showing the love he feels for her. I can't describe how loving and caring he is for her. The only thing I could think of is that Chris is constantly cheating on Tom with Jack. During this same night, I made the mistake to share some personal details about myself. An ex-boyfriend, who I also met in the game, was threatening me to share my personal photos in the internet just for fun. I was already taking legal actions, but I was really anxious and afraid, so I really needed to talk, and ended up sharing this with the girls. Back to the main story, my boyfriend kept telling Jack that he was really messing up by cheating on his wife. Jack was the one who always started the conversation. In some point, he confessed to me that his wife is also cheating on him, so that's why he doesn't care about it. He decided he was going to do whatever he wanted when he found out his wife was cheating. After some months, Jack kept flying to our city every 2 to 3 months to see her. The excuse was that he came to visit us. At some point, her husband and his wife ended up meeting us, and that's when my boyfriend also felt the enormous guilt. He got along so well with Tom. He said he was so nice, charming, and caring for her. He couldn't understand either how could she do this to him. I talked about it many times with my boyfriend, but we didn't have any proof besides what I saw. Some other drama happened. At some point, we thought that they had finally stopped, but we were wrong. A few days ago, my boyfriend and I hosted the party for Christmas. For quick background, since I started to live alone before moving with my boyfriend, my dad gifted me a security camera. Since then, I've had one in my house, and when we moved in, we placed the camera inside our apartment facing the entrance. Our apartment is small, so the camera's view is the door, the kitchen table, and the dishwasher. We usually check in our dogs with it and use it for safety, but to be honest, we always forget about it. The party was outside our apartment, and at some point, Jack and Chris were inside the house for a longer period of time, but I didn't think much about it. After a while, I started to pick up some unused stuff and taking them inside. I saw Jack, Chris, and another friend on my way in when Jack stopped me to ask me if the camera was a working security camera, and I said yes. He asked what did we use it for, and I said for both security and watching over our dogs. He looked like he wanted to say something else and had a face like he was worried, and so did Chris. He asked why did it speak, and I said that it had motion tracking and that he configured it to say hello, welcome when it detected a person. He said nothing more, so I kept doing my thing. Obviously, I instantly thought about the possibility of them getting recorded while kissing. I didn't care much about it in that moment. However, the rest of the night, both of them were acting strange. They were constantly going to a corner to speak. At some point, they were inside for around 10 minutes with the excuse of doing a dip for nachos. After that, they went outside and I heard her say, "Just do it fast and clean, but don't face it directly." And that's when I thought they were going to do something to the camera, and went inside a minute after him. The camera was only unplugged and laughed a little, and that's when I told my boyfriend what was going on. He was a bit mad that they were trying to mess with our stuff and asked me to plug it in and check if it was okay before they left. I plugged it back in and started to check at the recordings, and what I found shocked me. Found the moment when they were passionately kissing, only that luckily, but also found the moment when they were trying to mess with the camera, and that kinda pissed us off. Not only they didn't care about being in our house and making us part of their cheating, but they were also messing around with our stuff. We also talked about the fact that we thought that they had stopped cheating on their couple for at least 2024 and caught them doing that. We instantly thought about Tom and that he really deserves to know that his wife has been cheating on him for the last 2 years. It is really hard because we've seen the amount of effort, time, money that he puts into the relationship, and we really believe that it shouldn't be like that. The poor guy is living in a lie, and he is the only one who doesn't know. We also know that they both have always wanted kids, but due to issues with her being infertile, he gave up on his dream of being a dad in order to be with her. She has diabetes, and he is always extra cautious with her food, like buying sugar-free catsup, having no sugar in the house, buying sugar-free snacks for both, etc. It is a really complex situation, and I know it is not my place to judge, but he really deserves to know the whole story. Another thing that is keeping me from telling him is the fear of her going to my ex and asking him to post my pictures, which is a very high possibility. So Reddit, what are your thoughts? Update? Long story short, we decided to tell Tom even if it had repercussions against me. We decided that the best was to have a one-on-one man's talk between Tom and my boyfriend. It was hard to contact him, but we managed to get to him. Since I wasn't there, I will tell the version my boyfriend told me. For the surprise of no one, he was furious. More than 10 years threw out to the garbage. He told us they had already discussed divorce in the past due to marital issues, but after psychological counseling, they had been working on it. They had been going to therapy for the last 4 months. However, this was the last drop. Many other things were said, but I guess it is not worth mentioning them. Hope they can figure it out, and I feel very relieved. Quick update. We hadn't told Jack's spouse yet because we wanted to give Tom the time to plan everything. Seems like he went straight home to confront Chris right away, and I'm not sure about those details. At the end of the night, Jack's wife contacted us. She was a bit aggressive with me, so my boyfriend decided to be the one to talk to her and asked her if they could have a phone talk. Jack's wife told us that he came clean and that at a party Chris kissed him without him noticing. We unfortunately were the ones who had to tell her the whole truth. She was obviously devastated, and we offered her the videos, and she said she would love to have them since they would be very useful in the court to fight for her 2 children. We mentioned to her that in the past Jack told us that one of the reasons he was cheating was because she was also cheating on him. She was shocked to hear it, and she mentioned that it was a complete lie, that she could never do that, and mentioned that even if I ever wanted to, which I never did, how could I cheat on him since I'm always in my house alone with my children with no friends or family. She told us she was planning to fly back to our country. Jack's family lives in the USA as soon as possible. Chris also contacted us and it didn't go so well. She asked us to stay out of her life and to stop messaging Tom. Conversation went in circles, so we stopped replying.